Board of Supervisors, if the school board had any funds left over at the end of the year, could they take those back? And the answer is yes. They could take them back if they wanted to. Have they ever done that? The answer is no. And I think part of that, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, is the respect between the two boards. Because the school board needs a balanced budget too. So I think that, you know, they've sort of drawn the line. We're the county board, you're the school board. We will not play in your sandbox and tell you how to spend your money because you're elected, you know, by the voters to do that.
But if they have money left at the end of the year, does that roll forward? Or
Yes.
would you reflect that in the following year's
Well,
transfer?
that's why we do carryover. And that's another unique thing with Virginia, is that when the board approves a budget, they appropriate funds for the year. Well, when June 30th hits, that appropriation lapses. So you may have, say, a fire truck that you purchased but hadn't been delivered yet. So you have a contractual obligation, or you have a contract on a multi-year basis, or a better example is you have a building. It's going to take 2 years to build, but you just started. So you, in essence, have to carry over those funds. So in order to carry over those funds, you have to have a public hearing, and you have to take comment, and then the board reappropriate those funds. So if you look at the general fund statement or any fund statement in the budget, you'll see a column that says the adopted budget plan, and then you'll see the revised budget plan. Well, that revised budget plan reflects the amount that was put in as part of the carryover review, and it happens every year.
And I noticed there was a huge amount, it was 20-some odd million dollars, I believe it was.
It can be, because
That
when
was
you,
in the stormwater fund.
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I just, going back to the Board of Supervisors School Board, they had asked for 5%, is that correct?
They asked for almost 6, I think it was
5.7, correct, I'm being nice.
Let's go to page 27.
And then,
Let's go to page 27.
but my question is, and then when we get to 2.2, that your suggestion as of right now, you can't go any higher, you can go lower.
Right.
So they're advertising a budget on somewhere, or there's some communication on both sides of the shop.
Well, let me go back to November, all right? I gave a briefing, and there's a slide in here that says in November, I told the county board and the school board that we were projecting, if we gave salary increases and a regular adjustment for inflation and some other things, that there was a deficit of $169 million in FY14 and a deficit of $274 million in FY15. And I said, we have to balance the budget, and I had a list of things that we would have to consider. And at that time, I came out and said there would be no increases in compensation for county employees. But on the last slide, I said that one of the things we're going to have to look at is no increase in the school transfer. So when the school board sent their request over of 5.7%, I put 2% in there, and the main reason for that was for the school growth. You know, almost a little over 2,800 new students. I put that in there, but I know that I saw some things in the paper where some school board members were surprised that they didn't get more. But I was surprised that they didn't ask for less, based on, you know, our November conversation that said we're in trouble, we don't have the money. But it didn't, in fact, I believe the superintendent's budget was actually increased by the school board before it came over to the county. So the message was out there. The message was out there.
Are county employees not, is there a common policy across the county and the schools for compensation, or does the school board separately set the pay
The
scale?
school board separately sets the pay.
So they can be out of that?
That's one thing, that's one thing.
This year, for county employees, you're, correct me when I'm wrong, you're proposing that the compensation be flat, no increase? Or?
No increase.
And the school board is proposing.
They have proposed a 1%, 1%
2%.
and some other adjustments, but based on this lower transfer, I don't see how they can do that in May. Now, they could,
That's 18 million.
but they would have to cut in some other areas.
Yeah.
So I would be,
But how do you decide how much to give to the schools, given that they, you know, they make up their own budget? How do you figure out it should be
Well, I think,
X dollars versus Y dollars. When
it's
it's a black hole.
it's a judgment call.
Okay.
But one of the things, if you look at what we define as our product, I mean, schools have always been the county's top priority. It's the reason businesses come here, because of the workforce, it's very important. So it's important that you recognize schools. And when I was looking at the numbers and the growth that they were experiencing, that's how I sort of came up with the 2%. The debt service money, that comes out of the county's general fund, so we have to do that. So I used my judgment thinking that 2% was fair based on what we needed to balance the budget. And it ultimately comes down to what we can afford. Now, I could have decided I won't do a tax increase so schools get no more money. That was my other option. And I decided to let the board decide that. Yes, sir.
A couple of comments. First of all, there's always this tendency to compare school salary increases with county salary increases. And for one thing, they never match up from year to year. So that, for instance, this year, the county employees got 4.6, and the school employees got 2. But next year, you're proposing 0, and the schools are proposing 1. But neither of those situations make sense to me, because you should deal with a competitive market with whichever group you're dealing with.
I agree. And I looked at that on the county side, and let's go back to a program that I put out in December, and I'll show you the slide. Let's go back to page 30.